Claims that this poison has no antidote. Makes Wu Qiming feel great. He couldn't help but kneel on one knee. He reminded Wu Baqi to be cautious with their yoga. It's best not to provoke Mu Li. Otherwise, they won't be able to bear the consequences. Wu Baqi scoffed dismissively. Sorry, for the sake of the Wu family, you must die. Heh, do you have what it takes? Mu Li just gave a glance, and he trembled in fear. Old Master Yu's body was poisoned. Old Master Yu never expected that it would be his second son. Fool! Do you think they'd spare you after destroying the Yu family? Meanwhile, Wu Qiming approached Mulan with a knife. The Yu family is heavily guarded. How did you manage to sneak in and poison it? At this moment, Yu Lao'er stepped forward. I did it. I will become the next head of the Yu family. Wu 87, you actually poisoned him. Wu Hong suddenly burst into laughter. How is it? The laughter you bought in the capital is so absurd, colorless and tasteless. It was specially prepared for your birthday banquet. Just erase yoga. You're underestimating yoga too much. Old Master Yu is preparing to cultivate. When he tries to start, he finds he can't circulate his energy. The plane reacts. How many times have I told you, old man? My name is Wu Ba Qi. Try calling me wrong one more time. What benefits did you give these ingrates? It's simple, my Wu family wants nothing. You dare play tricks on me? Wu Qi Ba, I know you're here. A mere Wu Hong isn't qualified to make decisions here. Come out, now. At this moment, the head of the Wu family, Wu Ba Qi, stepped out. Old Master Yu slapped him across the face. Wu Hong covered his face in grievance. But he didn't dare to retaliate. Old Master Yu's eyes suddenly glinted. Hee, Wu Qi Ba. Old Master Yu let out a roar at those fence-sitters. Our Yu family has not treated you poorly. What are you trying to do? Wu Hong jumped out again. He lectured Old Master Yu. Some families began to respond one after another. When Mr. Wu learned that the families that originally supported them had been bought off by Wu Hong, and publicly supported the Wu family, he knew that the Wu family was ready to confront them today. Xiao Tong suddenly chimed in, congratulating the two of you, father and son, for your perfect harmony. Even pyramid schemes aren't as impressive as you two. Mu Li has figured it out. The Wu family wants to take this opportunity to promote themselves as the leaders of Northern Zhou. As expected. However, he clenched his fist. It's still hard to say that it's caused by the lack of leadership. Wu Hong immediately showed a look of deep sorrow. He expressed that the Wu family is willing to take the lead in forming the Northern Zhou family alliance, to resist foreign enemies. He felt at ease and continued his performance. Xiao Ming, you tell us, what caused the Northern Zhou dancers to be looked down upon? But Wu Qiming had a difficult expression, clearly reluctant to be the one to stick his neck out. He first brought up the time Lu Pengfei crashed their event, admitting that the younger generation in Beizhou was indeed strong. At this point, he glanced at Muley behind him, although wary of him. After confirming that he drank the cup of wine, he downed it in one gulp. Wu Hong made an excuse to go check on Old Master Yu. Then he left the place. After several rounds of drinks, Wu Hong raised his glass, ready to stir things up. He casually picked up a glass of red wine, and then walked over to Mu Li, apologizing again for the earlier incident, asking Mu Li to drink this glass of wine as a token of his apology. Mu Li didn't think much and accepted it. What to do? I'm so nervous. Should we have a boy or a girl? But Mu Li was greeting two old acquaintances, and didn't notice his expression at all. At this moment, Wu Hong's gaze shifted to Mu Li. Mu Li told Yu Xiaotong to just call him by his name in the future. Little did he know that this comment made him start strategizing. He felt like he had gotten closer to Mu Li. At this rate, give or take, they'd be married and having kids. This level isn't that difficult, right? I just practiced and ended up like this. Yu Xiaotong was quite taken aback. She instantly felt like a salted fish in a pickle, when the two clinked glasses, and he brought his son Wu Qiming. On the other side, Yu Xiaotong was chatting with Mr. Mu on the sofa in the room. Mr. Mu, you've achieved such a terrifying level at such a young age. I wonder how you did it. Although Old Master Yu lamented that daughters are hard to keep once they've grown, if Mu Li could become his grandson-in-law, he'd be even happier than winning the lottery. But then, an uninvited guest appeared. It was Wu Hong, who had once fought for the revival formula, and saved him from the situation. Mu Li presented his gift with both hands, and offered a birthday greeting. Before Old Master Yu could exchange a few words with Mu Li, he was dragged away by Yu Xiaotong. 3 days later, a birthday banquet was being held for Master Yu at the Yu family villa. However, Mu Li arrived here on a bicycle, completely confusing the butler at the entrance. Just as he was about to stop him, Master Yu and Yu Xiaotong had already come over. Xiao Bai asked again, what exactly is the use of this transformation technique? But Neili said, actually, it doesn't have much use. Xiao Bai instantly exploded with anger. making the whole building tremble. You'll recover in about 10 days. Hearing this, Xiao Bai suddenly turned his head. It consumes so much energy. Why didn't you say so earlier? It's fine, it's just that during this time your void world can't be used anymore. Xiao Bai was immediately frightened. He was afraid that his reckless actions might leave after effects. Mu Li patted his head, reassured him not to worry. You've just overexerted your energy. I feel strange. After Xiao Bai recovered a bit, Mu Li told him that transformation drains soul energy, so it makes you very tired. Feeling weak is normal. Xiao Bai covered her eyes, let out a shameful scream. Suddenly, a wave of dizziness hit him. Then he collapsed into Mu Li's arms. Mu Li, why do I feel so weak now? All it took was for Xiao Bai to shout the word transform, and she actually turned herself into a maid outfit. She shyly asked Mu Li if she looked good. Mu Li's thought process might be different from most people. He directly replied, you're exposed. Then he transformed into a cute little pig. Mu Li couldn't help but tease, did your sense of aesthetics come from your gym teacher? Xiao Bai was really upset. Who said that? Aren't you just looking to see beautiful girls? Let me transform for you. After mastering the technique, you can transform into any object you imagine. 1 hour later, under Mu Li's guidance, Xiao Bai has already mastered the skill. He first turned into a lush little tree. Mu Li noticed she had misunderstood. He said he was going to teach her a technique. Only then did she sit down in front of him. Mu Li began explaining that it was a soul transformation technique. The soul itself is an intangible and elusive substance. Mu Li clapped his hands. Come to the bed. Xiao Bai blushed. What are you going to do? Naturally, what you want to do. Very soon, Xiao Bai imagined the scene in her head. She thought to herself, is it really that hard for you to say a word of praise? What a stubborn Sundara. Mu Li spoke again, since you've already reached the realm of illusion and reality, I can teach you some methods for utilizing your soul body. What methods? Am I amazing or what? Hurry up and praise me. I won't get cocky, I promise. But Mu Li just said, not bad. Xiao Bai turned her head angrily. It only took one night. She reached the first level just out of boredom. Could it be that this girl is really a genius at ghost cultivation? Looks like Mu Li has found a real treasure this time. Xiao Bai excitedly approached him and asked, how was it? After I practiced it hundreds of times, I suddenly had an epiphany. Then I succeeded. Mu Li was deeply shocked at this moment. I didn't expect that Xiao Bai would master the illusion so quickly. It turns out that she had already run out. Mu Li was surprised at how she managed to escape. Weren't you supposed to be practicing the basic cultivation method for devilish spirits? I was locked in that dark and small place, and could only practice over and over again. After returning home from the Lonely Moon Tavern, he opened the royal bottle and let Xiao Bai out. However, there was no response for a long time. Just as Mu Li was tilting the bottle, Xiao Bai appeared behind him. With sorrow, they called out, Mr. Mu, take care. Is the mighty Wuji Heavenly Lord really about to harm his female disciple? Just now, Mu Li once again shattered the perception of the younger generation of Northern Zhou. And how could his ambitions be limited to the mere position of Woman Alliance leader? He blushed and instinctively replied, okay. Then he hooked his arm around Mu Li's and told Yu Xiaoxiong he was going to see Mr. Mu off. Yu Xiaoxiong immediately burst into tears. Truly, charm conquers all, even fierceness. The young Mu family members sent him off as if bidding farewell to a son-in-law. Even leaving, he still has to show off. So damn pretentious. Mu Li suddenly leaned close to Yu Xiaodong's ear. I'm going down first. My mom is still waiting for me. If there is a chance to visit Jiangnan province in the future, the Lu family will surely welcome him with fine wine. After saying this, he snapped open his fan, enduring the pain, trying to strike a cool pose. This bizarre posture has left everyone speechless. But Mu Li has no interest in any leader at all. This left Lu Pengfei utterly puzzled. Although he was eager to continue the discussion with an expert like Mu Li, the earlier palm strike had damaged his meridians. He could only offer Mu Li his apologies. In the future, he must be more cautious when acting in the imperial capital. As for Lu Pengfei's continuous challenges, he wants to quickly break through the martial respect level. The higher-ups in the martial arts community value this, because every generation's martial alliance leader is cultivated from among these young martial respects. The other is the person behind the chief. As for those beyond the martial master level, I've never seen one. Although this guy hasn't seen it, there must be some extraordinary individuals in the tomb. I only know that martial masters are rare. There are at most 20 of them. How many are above the level of martial master? It's rumored that there are 2 grand martial masters in the imperial capital. One is the leader of the martial alliance. But I believe Mr. Mu is even more of a genius. Lu Pengfei admitted Mu Li was strong, but thought there were stronger people in the capital. At this point, Mu Li asked how many people were among the 5 sovereigns of Huaxia. I'm not sure about that either. Why isn't your name on the martial honor candidate list? You definitely have the qualifications to compete for the top spot with Huan Fuyun. Before Mu Li could speak, Yu Xiaotong interrupted. Huan Fuyun is indeed a genius among the younger generation. He was the first to flatter. Lu Feng continued to flatter as well. Lu Pengfei coughed twice. He interrupted their flattery. You are so strong. He found all his injuries were completely healed. But during the treatment, quite a few people had gathered around. Mu Li asked in confusion, what are you all looking at? Is there something wrong? Wu Qiming gave a thumbs up. With that, he extended his palm. A gentle aura overflowed, repairing his meridians and the boy's senses. His whole body felt warm. When he opened his eyes, Mu Li gestured for him to sit down first. As soon as Yu Xiaotong sat down, his whole body began to swell with pain. Mu Li stepped forward. You're seriously injured. Don't worry, you'll be fine in a moment. Yu Xiaotong just wouldn't listen. She absolutely refused to take her brother's medicine again. Seeing Yu Xiaotong's helpless and desperate expression, Mu Li patted Yu Xiaotong on the shoulder, and said with a smile, let me handle it. Because the pills his brother developed are always strange and unusual. Last time, I felt itchy all over, not to mention being unable to stand the heat. Yu Xiaotong quickly explained that it was the great strength pill for building the body. Those reactions are all normal. How dare you injure the young master? Lu Pengfei immediately stopped Elder Mei. He admitted that he was outmatched. At that moment, Yu Xiaotong's voice called for help from Mu Li. It turned out he didn't want to take his brother's medicine, and threw a simple yet powerful punch. The force from the punch created a sudden burst of wind pressure. Then Lu Pengfei was sent flying. Elder Mei caught him just in time. He then looked at Mu Lin in anger and asked, who are you? Mocked by Muley. This guy hurriedly explained it was Commander Shi. Muley smiled indifferently. Anyway, the result would be the same. Muley raised his right arm. Even Muley showed a look of surprise. It wasn't just surprise. It was that this arrogant guy was attacking, leaping back and forth, just like a legendary secret technique, repeatedly dodging. If your life is lost, don't blame me, because you brought this upon yourself. He thrust out his palm. A giant green python shadow formed behind him. The powerful force of the palm strike almost terrified the people of northern Zhou. Then consider it your victory. Lu Pengfei sneered. Very well. Then I'll use all my strength. Not only will I make you retreat, I'll make you fly. I heard you think the younger generation of the northern Zhou martial arts world is trash. That it disappoints you. That's right. I wonder if you have the qualifications to make me take that back. I stand here. If you can make me take a step back. It is said that Mu Li has been invited. Let him quickly take this 8-flavored emperor pill. If he injures his tendons, it would be disastrous. Lu Pengfei looked at Mu Li with a smile that was not quite a smile, saying, you are the helper they brought in. Just then, Yu Xiaoxiong arrived with Mu Li at last. Seeing his injured sister, he quickly ran over to support Yu Xiaotong. Then, he pulled out a bottle of pills from his pocket to replenish kidney energy and boost vitality. Yu Xiaotong raised a hand to stop them. Don't go. Lu Pengfei, Northern Zhou is not without geniuses, but I'm afraid that once he's here, you won't be able to handle it. Hearing this, Lu Pengfei immediately became interested. With just one exchange, Yu Xiaotong was defeated. Lu Pengfei showed a look of disappointment. Too weak. Simply too weak. As the other dancers from Northern Zhou were about to swarm forward, do you want to fight me? I know I'm not your opponent, but I can't just sit back and watch you insult the young dancers of Northern Zhou. Dad threw a punch at him. Everyone held their breath, on edge. Who could possibly withstand that? The people of Northern Zhou began to discuss Lu Pengfei again. Lu Pengfei continued to insult them as the weakest young generation he had ever seen. At this moment, he and Xiaotong had already taken their stances. Lu Pengfei glanced at him playfully and said, what? Yu Xiaotong slowly explained that every era in Huaxia has a group of people, who are gifted beyond the ordinary. These people are treated as martial masters, and their chances of breaking through to martial mastery are very high. After hearing this, the girl exclaimed, high-level martial artists, are you using the younger generation of Northern Zhou for your trials? Lu Pengfei responded with a smirk, has my reputation already reached here? Actually, I've been fighting my way here all the way from Jiangnan, but when it came to the Northern Zhou, I was too disappointed. A girl next to me curiously asked Yu Xiaotong, who exactly is this Lu Pengfei? Then he struck with a palm as swift as lightning. Wu Qiming was sent flying. He slammed hard into the ceiling. A loud, violent crash echoed. At this moment, Yu Xiaotong finally recognized the hypocrite. You're Lu Pengfei from the Lu family in Jiangnan province. Iha Yisheng unleashes the eagle's wings. Lu Pengfei lifted his eyelids. Eagle claw technique. Unfortunately, it still doesn't impress. And Lu Feng was slapped unconscious to the ground. Lu Pengfei arrogantly laughed. Little one, aren't you done with your sleazy stuff yet? Getting slapped in the face by someone on top of you. At this moment, Wu Qiming also can't hold on anymore. He sighed a little. Lu Feng couldn't sit still anymore. He shouted, let me teach you a lesson. Then he charged ahead. Lu Pengfei waved his hand. The renowned young hero of Jiuyang, Beizhou. I specifically came here to see for myself. Unfortunately, the rumors are exaggerated. Such a hollow reputation. Feeling deeply disappointed, the scene then shifted back to the 5th floor. Wu Qiming questioned sharply, who are you? Why did you come here to cause trouble? I told you, my surname is Lu. I'm from Jiangnan. Mu Li's family was having dinner on the 3rd floor, while the siblings were listening to their mother's advice. Yu Xiaoxiong hurried over in a panic. Mu Li quickly stood up and asked him what was going on. Yu Xiaoxiong explained that someone was causing trouble. He suddenly waved his fan and continued, you are all garbage. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire audience was shocked. I didn't expect someone who looked so refined to speak so viciously. Meanwhile, young talents emerge in droves. So I came to see your styles. Wu Qiming really appreciates this statement, so why don't you tell us how we measure up? I think everyone here. Speaking of which, Yu Xiaotong blushed with embarrassment. She turned around and defended herself, I wasn't. At this moment, Lu Pengfei said to the crowd, I recently passed through Beizhou. I heard that tonight the eldest son of the Wu family in Beizhou is hosting a banquet for young talents. Beizhou is famous for its outstanding people and rich land. Many girls were utterly captivated by Lu Pengfei's refined demeanor, except for Yu Xiaotong, who looked on with disdain. Is it necessary to be this love-struck? Yu Xiaoxiong overheard Xiaomei's teasing. He leaned over and whispered teasingly, you look at Mr. Mu the same way. And I hail from Jiangnan. Wu Qiming breathed a sigh of relief. Feeling that this man was far more polite than Muley, he then warmly invited him inside for a chat, and to subtly probe into his background. He found that this person had an extraordinary demeanor. However, he seemed quite unrefined. He shouldn't be from one of the prominent families of the northern Zhou. Lu Pengfei flicked his fan. He added, my surname is Lu. He looked toward the noisy scene across from him. The familiar voice laughed and said, hello everyone. I'm honored to attend this banquet. Please take care of me. Wu Qiming looked in the direction of the voice. The moment the elevator doors opened, these two people just happened to brush past the Mu Li siblings. Lu Pengfei's eyes lit up. He clearly sensed that Mu Li was an extraordinary dancer. However, he didn't pay it much mind. Now that you've been promoted to the Wu Zun reserve ranking, why waste time on such a small event? Lu Pengfei closed his fan and smiled, for the least, in honor of the public year. Talents are rare. I just want to see if the northern Zhou is truly as hidden and talented as the rumors say. I was almost knocked out by how handsome little Shuai is. Little Shuai even deliberately waved his hand and said thank you. Then he left the young lady with a dashing figure, and stepped into the elevator. The attendant, old Mei, asked puzzledly, young master, there's no way his sister could act like that. Just 5 minutes before Muley went upstairs, a stylish young man in a traditional Chinese outfit, holding a fan, walked into the 9th floor. He asked the receptionist which floor Wu Qiming's party was on. The young lady immediately told him it was on the 5th floor. I really can't feel happy about it. So, how will the sister praise this celestial brother next? Wow, my brother is actually amazing. But Mushin's expression seemed a bit stiff and forced. At this moment, Muley realized he had overthought it. Mushin suddenly said, brother, I just realized how amazing you are. Couldn't you add a bit of emotion when you say that? Like a hint of admiration or enthusiasm. Your tone is so flat when you praise me. Yu Xiaodong suddenly felt a bit of jealousy. Once again, Liu Feng stupidly stood in front of Muley to provoke him. As expected, Muley swiftly sent him flying with a brutal kick. The brother and sister arrived at the elevator. Just then, Muley's mom called and said he had arrived. Mushin grabbed Muley, trying to stop him from causing more trouble. Mom has already arrived. We can't keep her waiting too long. Watching Muley being led away by his sister, he even rallied quite a few of the younger generation against the Yu family's tyrannical behavior. Wu Qiming was completely dumbfounded. This Lu Feng is practically an idiot. It was hard enough to calm things down, and now he's causing more trouble. Even Mu Li was slightly moved by the girl's bold declaration at that moment. Wu Qiming was sweating profusely. He was very aware that over the years, the Wu family and the Yu family had been secretly at odds. There's no need to fall out over some unremarkable kid. Yet Lu Feng recklessly stirred up trouble, and warned him that it would be best not to court death. After the older brother finished speaking, the younger sister threw out another harsh remark. Today, Yu Xiaotong, am laying this down. Anyone who dares to touch Mr. Mu, I, the Yu family, swear to retaliate. That day, your father was beaten so badly he was crying for help. As soon as those words were spoken, the whole crowd was stunned. Wu Qiming clearly didn't believe Yu Xiaotong's words. Yu Xiaoxiong stepped forward again and said that his father was indeed defeated by Mu Li. It turns out that the one who led the attack on Yu Xiaotong to seize the revitalizing manual was his father. No wonder this guy looks constipated now. Wu Qiming forced a calm expression and said, then congratulations to the old man Yu. But what's your reason for jumping out to stop me? Of course, to save you. Besides, didn't you invite the young people from the martial arts families of Beizhou? Why can't we come too? Wu Qiming was startled. Even Yu Xiaoxiong is here. Could old master you really be cured? Who says my grandpa is no good? My grandpa is doing just fine. Not only is he doing fine, he'll be doing even better in a few days. His 65th birthday celebration. It was actually Yu Xiaotong who made the move. Wu Qiming stood up. He mocked Yu Xiaotong. Why aren't you taking care of your ailing old man? What are you doing here? Wu Qiming has already rushed to Mu Li's side. Just as his palms were about to strike Mu Li, suddenly, a voice shouted for him to stop. Then, a punch landed on Wu Qiming's arm. Wu Qiming was knocked back several dozen steps before stabilizing himself, and timidly asked, brother, can you win? Your brother is unbeatable in Northern Zhou. You need to have faith in me. Jupiter just said, go for it, brother. If you lose, you must abandon your martial arts. Mu Li agreed to it firmly. He declared that as long as he could withstand one of his attacks, he would withdraw from the 5 paths of Northern Zhou. Mu Xian tugged at Mu Li's sleeve. Mu Li still gave him 2 words. He wasn't continuously slapped in the face. Wu Qiming couldn't hold it in anymore. He proposed to fight Mu Li. If Mu Li wins, he can leave any time. Mu Li coldly smiled, asking, what does your face even count for? Why should I give you any face? I don't have it. So, do all the young members of the Beizhou family together have the qualifications to earn your respect? It's clearly Lu Feng who caused the trouble. This guy even said that his sister being harassed isn't a big deal. Maybe he can even climb the social ladder with the Lu family. He wants Mu Li to give him some face. Let's end this matter here. Lu Feng was immediately filled with rage. He grabbed a stool and threw it at Mu Li. Mu Li responded with a kick that sent him flying. This time, Lu Feng couldn't even get back up. Wu Qiming hurried over to smooth things over. Wu Qiming was instantly shocked. Are they from the imperial capital, the Mu family? At this moment, 2 girls walked over. Seeing the creepy guy, they exclaimed, what's going on? Young Master Lu has been beaten up. Your surname is Mu, right? There's no prominent Mu family in the Northern Zhou dynasty. Are you Mu the fool from the hotel nearby? You dare to act so arrogantly in front of us? Mu's eyes darkened. Who told you my family runs a hotel? He found it a bit incredible. The creepy guy retorted unhappily, how dare you kick me? I kicked you, so what? The sleazy guy couldn't come up with a rebuttal for the moment, but someone watching the drama chimed in. He said lightly, since you are sincerely asking, I might as well tell you. I'm his older brother. My surname is Mu. Mu Xing was surprised to see his older brother so domineering for the first time, and kicked him immediately. The sleazy man was sent flying, slamming hard into the wall. Wu Qiming, who happened to be passing by, stopped in his tracks at the sight. Mu Li looked at the sleazy man on the ground. Mu Li quickly snatched it away. The sleazy guy immediately shouted, I've put up with you for long enough. I was talking to him. Why are you butting in? Mu Li said nothing. Mu Xian noticed he wasn't someone to mess with. She suggested to Mu Li that maybe they should just sit with the sleazy guy. Mu Li signaled him not to be afraid. The sleazy guy, still not giving up, handed his business card toward the tomb. Just as Mu Xing was about to take it, the speaker was Wu Qiming, the young master of the Wu family. It turned out he was hosting a banquet for the prominent families of Beizhou today. The younger generation, knowing Mu Li entered by accident, encouraged him to sit down and get to know everyone. The sleazy guy immediately started flattering Wu Qiming. It's practically asking for trouble, but Mu Li didn't want to make a scene. As he was about to leave with Mu Xian, a man approached them. Where are you two rushing off to? A man walking past Jupiter deliberately reached out with a lewd gesture. Jupiter flinched in shock. It's bad enough to take advantage of someone, but this creepy guy shamelessly flirted with Jupiter. He even teased his sister in front of Wood. Mu Xian didn't know what he was doing, just spacing out. She pulled him, trying to leave. It turns out this spot was reserved in advance. The waiter gave them a different table. Otherwise, you'll scold him for wasting money again. At this moment, a sound from outside the door caught Mu Li's attention, because the people entering from the doorway mentioned his greatest enemy from his past life, Zhou Xiang. The moment he heard that name, Mu Li's expression darkened. The luxury set meal. Price, 66,666. Mu Xian didn't expect his older brother to be this wealthy. He carefully handed the menu back to the waiter. Mu Li was relieved that their mom didn't come along. Mu Xin couldn't help but widen her mouth as she looked at the menu. Because any dish costs nearly 10,000 yuan. Even if their family only orders 3 dishes, the minimum spend starts at 30,000. Mu Li directly chose the most expensive set meal on the menu. The welcoming hostess bowed. She greeted them enthusiastically. Today, the Lonely Moon Tavern is hosting a martial arts sect gathering. Many dancers are working as security in the hall. After the siblings took their seats, every time my brother ruffles my hair, I always feel inexplicably shy and my face turns red. The Lonely Moon restaurant in front of me is the best restaurant in Beizhou. This is the first time for both siblings. Jupiter walked up to the front gate with Muley. He called his sister, Mu Xian. There's something I want to tell you. Tonight, we'll take Mom to the most famous restaurant in Beizhou for a meal. Mu Xin nodded. I don't know why. Don't make me call your name. Xiao Bai instantly cowered. He timidly responded that he would go in right away. After Xiao Bai obediently flew into the bottle, Muley walked out of the bedroom. You're staying home alone today. Xiao Bai quickly hugged Muley and shouted, no. He really wanted to go out and play. Muley wasn't going to go easy on him. He took out the jade porcelain bottle and said to him, get in now. How could it be that loud? I didn't hear clearly and thought Muley became a fool from eating too much ginseng. But at this distance, the sight made Muley blush and awkwardly pull his hand away. He turned his head to the side and said, you can't disturb my cultivation anymore. As punishment, and asked what he had been muttering about. Xiao Bai floated over to him, and touched his forehead with his hand, to see if he was ill. He had just been talking to himself. But the immortal method that Muley practices is the supreme celestial technique. With a single inhale, he can absorb it all. When he exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, he had already reached the mid-stage of qi cultivation. Muley looked at Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai smelled the medicinal fragrance of the mountain ginseng wafting from the bottle. Seeing Muley gnawing on 100-year-old ginseng, he was astonished. Isn't that ginseng? This guy is actually treating it like a radish. An ordinary person definitely wouldn't be able to withstand the medicinal properties of 100-year-old ginseng. After all, Yu Jia has been quite good to him. Muley gladly agreed. He wants to see how Tang Tang, the Supreme Lord Wu Ji, practices. He picked up the century-old ginseng. Just eat it like a snack. Yu Xiaoxiong instantly refused. Muley is their family's great benefactor. Talking about money feels too distant. Then he handed Muley the invitation for the banquet hosted by Old Master Yu. He hopes Muley can find time to attend in 3 days. He nodded in satisfaction. Because this old ginseng could almost be considered a low-level spiritual medicine. Yu Xiaoxiong said they were still constantly searching. As soon as they find something, they'll deliver it immediately. When Muley mentioned buying herbs at a high price, Muley had just walked a few steps. Xiao Bai almost knocked over his old monster. Seeing Muley come out, Yu Xiaoxiong quickly handed over the box containing the century-old demon. Muley opened it and took a look. When going out, he reminded Xiao Bai again not to come out during this time. Xiao Bai certainly doesn't want to be stuck inside every day, causing a ruckus inside, making the bottles shake continuously. Hearing Mu Xian's urging, did you come to see me for something? A man calling himself Yu Xiaoxiong is looking for you. He said he found the herbs you wanted. He brought them for you. Muley immediately perked up. If I find out you bring home random women, don't blame me. Brotherly and sisterly love drove her out. It was obvious that the commotion just now was misunderstood by the little sister. Muley awkwardly changed the topic. Jupiter directly said to him, remember to consider the consequences of your actions. Seeing that the older brother seemed confused, Jupiter's little face turned red. He continued to explain, can't you hear such a loud noise outside? Are you there? The two suddenly froze. Seeing the door about to be pushed open, Mu Li's controlling nature kicked in. The bottle quickly sucked in the struggling Xiao Bai. When he hid the bottle behind him, she even thought there must be something unspeakable hidden in Mu Li's room. Mu Li didn't want to answer such a childish question. He opened the bottle cap and hurried him inside. Just as Mu Li forcefully stuffed Xiao Bai inside, a voice from outside the door called out, Gu, why does he have such powerful abilities? She moved closer to Mu Li. She asked him where he learned the Rao style. Even Mu Li, as a celestial master, was at a loss with this girl's question. The more Xiao Bai spoke, the more excited she became. But she was still very grateful to him. At that moment, Xiao Bai was in Muley's bedroom, staring at a bottle, studying it. Muley said it was a jade porcelain bottle he bought at the jade market. This bottle will be his shelter from now on. Xiao Bai is very curious about who Mu Li really is. Old Zhong is truly a cunning fox. He has paved his way completely. Before leaving the tea house, Muley told Xiaoqin that she and her sister would meet again someday. Xiaoqin knew Muley was just comforting her. When the manager approached the two elders to apologize, old Zhong told him, that person just now was Master Mu, someone of higher status than them. From now on, treat him as an honored guest when he visits the tea house. At the same time, he announced that Zhang Xiaoqin would be the new manager of the tea house. The manager listened in shock. What does he mean by handling it? Mu didn't have time for him. He turned and walked out of the tea house, leaving the manager standing there in a daze. I hurriedly asked him how it went. Did he just brush it off? Muley said he had already handled it. He even argued with them for a bit, and convinced them. He was determined to hold on to this terrifying figure. At this moment, the manager downstairs was sweating profusely. He felt anxious and uneasy. He was afraid that Muley would anger the two adults. When Muley finally came downstairs, old man Zhong was quite perceptive. With one word, Muley guessed that Zhang Xiaoqin was the one being referred to. Muley nodded. Old Zhong stroked his beard. It was clear that Zhang Xiaoqin had a deep relationship with Muley. No need for formality, my surname is Mu. Muley did not understand why someone like him was visiting such a small tea house. He even considered giving the tea house to Muley. Only then did Muley reveal the reason. He said he was just helping a friend who is a tea master. We actually dared to speak recklessly in your presence. You've over-exaggerated. I'm just here to prove to you that cultivating both internally and externally is feasible. Old man Zhong cupped his hands in greeting. May I ask your esteemed surname? He actually considers himself a martial master. He's underestimated him too much. Old Zhong's attitude immediately changed. He looked at Muley and respectfully said, Master, please forgive our ignorance. The ladle sank 3 inches deep into the wood. This is outside. The two old men were utterly shocked. They even thought Muley might be a martial lord. Muley smiled slightly. The two old men were instantly thunderstruck. Their faces full of disbelief. Muley spoke calmly. This is inside. He then held a wooden ladle and thrust it toward the tea table. Then, with a flick of his finger, the willow leaf shot out with a whistling sound. The seemingly light leaf, carrying immense power, sliced through the tea table, its force dissipating slightly. The solid wooden tea table was split in two by the leaf. After finishing, Muley extended his hand with a hint of spiritual energy. He flicked it towards a willow leaf outside the window. A willow leaf, wrapped in spiritual energy, floated into Muley's hand. He intended to use his strength to conquer the two self-righteous old men. The willow leaf rested on his fingertips, because old Zhong had seen too many deceitful cultivators. In the end, it all ended in failure. Muley chuckled knowingly. Those who think themselves strong always hold on to their pride. As long as the tone and ideas differ, they will argue back. But Muley didn't get angry. Instead, he explained that martial arts have no strongest, only stronger. Have you two ever considered that balancing internal and external training might yield better results? But old Zhong thought Muley was just daydreaming. Old man Zhong slammed his hand on the table, and angrily said, Eternal, is talking about immortality, right? This boastful kid is trying to fool us with unrealistic nonsense. Hearing the crucial point, the two old men exclaimed in unison, what kind of great path is this? This path is the eternal path. Upon hearing the word eternal, the two of them were extremely shocked. I wonder what your insight is. I'd love to hear more. Muley stood up and began to elaborate on the pros and cons of both internal and external cultivation. All cultivation methods in the world have their reasons for existing, but in the end, they all lead to the same great path. The two old men who were already in a scuffle immediately turned to look at Muley. The tea house manager was also pressing against the outside, listening to the commotion inside, afraid that one wrong move would anger the two adults. Old Lee suddenly became serious, unexpected that we two would argue endlessly, but was outright denied by the little brother with one remark. Muley then realized. No wonder the tea house manager finds them difficult to serve. Muley finally spoke up, saying plainly, both of you are wrong. As soon as these words were spoken, how deep could his understanding of martial arts be at his age? Aren't you putting him on the spot? Besides, it's obvious internal martial arts are stronger. The two of them had nothing left to say. The heated banter has begun again. You must have some knowledge of martial arts, right? Why don't you tell us? Isn't external martial arts stronger than internal ones? Old man Zhong didn't like hearing that. Even if this young man knows something, fine flavor, you two might as well calmly enjoy a cup of tea. While discussing grandly, Old Lee put down his teacup and said, little brother, your tea brewing skills are truly impressive. Your tea making skills aren't bad. You're new here, aren't you? Muley immediately displayed his refined demeanor. A single tea drinker finds the spirit. Two find interest. It feels like I'm 30 years younger. I can swim freely in the rivers from every angle, no limits. While old Zhong was still immersed in it, along with the dancer, old Li spoke up, young man, as if he were surrounded by a sea of clouds, floating and peaceful. When he took a small sip, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. He felt his whole body brimming with vitality. He caught a whiff of a strong and unique tea fragrance. Only then did he glance at the young man who was brewing tea for them. Old Zhong lifted the teacup, and took a deep sniff. A serene and ethereal fragrance filled his entire being. Among the internal martial artists, an old man suddenly stood up. Old Li, do you not understand human language? Did I ever say to rely solely on internal strength? Suddenly, he paused. It seems it's these two fiery old men. Mu Li sits down at the table. He takes out the tea set and starts brewing tea. He listens intently as the two old men bicker. The argument is about whether internal martial artists are stronger than external martial artists. The manager really has no choice. I can only take Mu Li upstairs. And those two gentlemen are in room 1. Who on earth are they? What makes the esteemed immortal lord brew tea for them? Xiao Qin's face flushed. She understood what he meant. Mu Li continued, look at him now. Does he look fit to brew tea? If you insist on making him do it, it will only cause trouble. The manager looked disdainful, clearly not believing Muley could brew tea. Muley casually said she had learned to brew tea from Xiao Qin. Xiao Qin was just about to speak, when Muley grabbed her wrist. She kept explaining that it might affect her performance. The manager got angry and threatened her, asking if she didn't want the job. Muley stepped in front of Xiao Qin, and said she would help Xiao Qin brew the tea this time. It would also be a favor for Xiao Bai. He asked for someone else to take his place. The manager scolded him, asking why he was acting so delicate. Even if he really felt unwell, he should endure it. We can't afford to offend those two important figures upstairs. Xiao Qin was in very bad shape at the time. She vowed to become stronger. She would never experience the pain of losing a loved one again. At that moment, the tea house manager told Xiao Qin to hurry over. He said two important people were waiting for him to make tea. Xiao Qin explained that he wasn't feeling well. She recognized that it belonged to her sister, Xiao Bai. Overwhelmed with pain, she slumped to the ground. She cried out loud, blaming herself for not taking good care of her sister. Mu Li immediately felt the same way. Someone asked me to relay a message to you. Zhang Xiaoqin opened it and, excitedly asked Mu Li where it was from. When Mu Li casually made up an excuse, Zhang Xiaoqin looked at the content on the paper and burst into tears. The receptionist called out towards the back. Zhang Xiaoqin walked out holding the tea set. He set down the tea set and looked at Mu Li in confusion. Just as he was about to ask who he was, Mu Li pulled out a note. The receptionist warmly asked Mu Li what service she needed. Mu Li asked if they had a server named Zhang Xiaoqin here. The receptionist said Zhang Xiaoqin was their best tea brewer. She thought Mu Li was specifically requesting his service. Mu Li said she was looking for him for something. He found out that Xiao Bai's sister, Zhang Xiaoqin, worked here. Xianming Pavilion is the best tea house in the northern continent. A cup of tea can even sell for tens of thousands. In her past life, Mu Li was fascinated by such high-end places. She never thought she'd have the chance to come here after being reborn. At the same time, Mu Li mentioned that his soul and body aren't strong enough to walk far. He could only write down what he wanted to say. Then Mu Li would take it to his sister. Around noon, Mu Li arrived at this tea house called Xianming Pavilion. Turns out Mu Li didn't sleep much last night. He was transferring energy to Xiao Bai the whole time. Xiao Bai smoothly absorbed all of Mu Li's technique. Afterward, he prepared to take Xiao Bai and leave the house. Xiao Bai asked Mu Li to take him to see his sister first. Chen Long felt the absence of the negative energy in the house. He looked at Mu Li with admiration. Mu Li suddenly said, "Hi. Last night, that little girl kept me up all night. I didn't sleep well at all." The house shakes 3 times. The next morning, when Chen Long saw Mu Li walking out of his house, he excitedly ran over to ask how it went. Mu Li said it was all taken care of. And a ghost again. Don't even think about offering yourself to me. Xiao Bai suddenly shouted loudly, "Mu Li, you're a big jerk." It is said that when a female ghost howls, at first, Xiao Bai didn't understand, but thinking about it, he understood what Mu Li meant. His face darkened. "Aren't you just mocking my small chest?" Mu Li waved his hand indifferently. "So, a flat-chested little girl. I will definitely repay you with my life." Hearing this, Mu Li gestured for him to stand up, then had him look down. Xiao Bai looked down and saw his big toes painted with nail polish. Upon hearing this from Mu Li, Xiao Bai pouted, "Are you saying I should call you master and be your servant?" Mu Li smiled slightly, "Not at all. Just call me Muley. Thank you for waiting until I could cultivate into human form. Moreover, one can reshape their body in the future. It's essentially a rebirth. However, Muli has a condition. That is, you must absolutely obey his commands. Muli wants him to protect his mother. Xiao Bai was so moved that he shed tears. As long as he can be saved, he's willing to serve Muli faithfully. Seeing that his soul is currently unstable, Muli prepares to teach him a technique to strengthen his soul. There was another method: abandon the physical body, and cultivate only the soul. These cultivators are known as ghost cultivators. So Muli promised not only to take Xiao Bai away from here, but also to resurrect him. Eyes filled with desire. In the past Purple Star immortal realm before the tomb, fallen cultivators could rebuild their bodies through possession or by using rare treasures, and continue cultivating. Besides that, Xiao Bai is already in tears. Mu Lin patted his little head, saying there's a way to get him out of here. As soon as Xiao Bai heard this, immediately perked up. But once he flies out of here, it will leave you terrified. Being stuck here for too long makes me want to pull some pranks. Speaking of which, his mother couldn't support 2 children. It was his sister who dropped out of school to work and support his education. In the whole world, his sister was the best to him. After realizing he had become a ghost, he always wanted to take a look at his sister. He stayed with his father, but his father was a heavy drinker and gambler. He often beat and scolded him. His sister often sneaked out to see him. Later, his father accidentally fell into the river and drowned while drunk. Accidental death. Muli asked him if he had any unresolved issues. After all, every ghost that hasn't reincarnated yet has an obsession. It turns out his parents divorced when he was young. His mother took his sister away. It turns out the little girl's name is Zhang Xiaobai. 2 years ago, she was a freshman at Beizhou University. At that time, this place was still a wasteland. She took a shortcut back to school through here, but fell into a big pit. Instead, Muli asked her name and her background. The little girl is quite tsundere and doesn't want to speak. Seeing the man in front of her about to get angry, she hurriedly reveals everything. The female ghost was hit and sat on the bed, crying out in pain. Then, looking fierce but cute, she opened her mouth, ready to bite Muli. Muli kept pointing at her forehead. The female ghost then transformed into the appearance of an innocent young girl. The young girl asked Muli why he wasn't afraid of her. Muli was lying in bed, saying it was nothing. He just continued to sleep, ignored by others. The female ghost immediately exploded with anger. A shadow suddenly flashed by. "Can I have yours? Why should I give you anything? Do you have any shoes?" The female ghost was completely baffled. Why isn't this person acting normally? A shadow appeared behind Muli. Muli suddenly turned around and said to the female ghost, "Hello. It's late at night. What brings you here?" The female ghost's mournful voice echoed, "My legs are gone." That night, Muli slept in his bed, quietly waiting for the ghost to appear. As expected, with a gust of eerie wind, Mulin knew he wasn't joking. If this issue wasn't resolved, it might affect his family. So, he volunteered to stay at Qianlong's house for a night, guaranteeing that nothing would cause trouble in the future. "I saw a woman with long hair and a white dress crouching outside." Qianlong didn't dare to open the window. Ever since then, every time he falls asleep, he always feels someone blowing cold air into his ear. The lack of sleep over time gave him these panda eyes. Qianlong whispered in Mu Li's ear that it was caused by the female ghost. It happened when he moved in on the first day. "It felt like there was a cold wind behind me. In the middle of the night, I was woken up by a rapid knocking on the window." Mu Li pulled Qianlong over and warned him, if he gets any closer, his sister would go into a rage. She even teased him that those panda eyes were from getting beaten up for flirting, but he really wasn't beaten up. Then he casually walked in. "He is the neighbor from across the hall. His name is Qianlong, please take care of him in the future." After the self-introduction, he actually dared to flirt with Mu Xing in front of Mu Li. Wuji Immortal Lord bought a house and unexpectedly got a flatland little ghost girl as a bonus. Just now, Mu Li finally let his sister and mother move into the luxurious ocean view room. While the siblings were talking, a young man outside greeted them. Yu Jia and Zhu Wenfa's business dealings. Zhu Wen responded by slapping Zhou Mei in the face, then unleashed a torrent of insults. This is called karma coming full circle. The heavens never spare anyone. Coincidentally, Yu Xiaoxiong happened to pass by here, and saw Mu Li, greeting him warmly. After hearing about Mu Li's issues with buying a house, Yu Xiaoxiong immediately exploded and cut off. After briefly explaining, when Keida began discussing with Mu Li, when he saw Mu Li shaking his head in refusal, when Keida threatened Mu Li, saying this house belongs to the Yu family, he claimed that even if the money was paid, they could choose not to sell to him. She insisted that they must buy Mu Li's apartment. She even rubbed against his arm affectionately. Zhu Wenda understood her intention. He immediately agreed to buy it for her. Unexpectedly, Zhu Wenda knew the sales manager here, when Keita. He directly took out his phone to make a transfer. He quickly transferred the full payment for the house, 5 million. The salesgirl immediately announced that Muli has become their new homeowner. Zhou Mei's expression was one of sheer shock. Zhou Mei immediately began to act cute with her boyfriend, Zhu Wenda. The young lady decided to swipe the card first, but the card swipe unexpectedly failed. The sales lady awkwardly asked if the password was wrong. Just as Zhou Mei was secretly pleased, Muli thought it might be due to the transfer limit, telling her to look at other options. Zhou Mei showed a vicious expression, saying Muli was just a broke loser, who couldn't possibly have that much money. To verify whether Muli actually had money, it was he who urged Muli to ask for money from home to buy snacks and watch movies. Muli back then was, without exaggeration, just a total simp. Zhou Mei came in and immediately said she wanted to buy the house Muli had his eye on. But Muli pulled out that 888 black card and paid it off in one go. The saleswoman immediately explained to Zhou Mei. Then she called out to him. It turns out this beautiful girl is Muli's middle school classmate, Zhou Mei. Muli didn't expect such a coincidence. Speaking of Zhou Mei, Muli remembers her vividly. A beautiful woman in sunglasses got out of the car, but her boyfriend's appearance was a bit of a joke. At this moment, the salesgirl was introducing the advantages of their property to Muli. This ugly guy and beautiful girl duo also came over. The girl in sunglasses froze for a moment when she saw Muli. I am very pleased that my son finally understands. The next day, Muli arrived at a real estate sales center. As soon as he walked in, a commotion broke out outside. It turned out that someone had parked a Ferrari outside, but she was worried about wasting money. Muli explained that he's made quite a bit of money now. He just wanted her to live better. She was taken aback. After dinner, he washed the dishes with his mom. Suddenly, he said sorry to his mom. Her smile was still so warm. Taking the chance, Muli suggested buying her a house. It looked like it was about to spill. Mom rushed over and caught the pot of boiling soup. She touched his hand and asked if he was hurt. Little wooden donkey cried and said he was fine, but the burn on Mom's arm has been there ever since. She climbed onto a stool and made soup by herself. After it was ready, she used all her strength to slowly lift it. At that moment, her mother woke up and came out of the bedroom. She walked into the kitchen and saw her son was carrying a big pot of soup. She kept putting food on Muli's plate. When she saw the scar on her mother's arm, her thoughts went back to when she was 8 years old. Her mother had a cold and was sleeping. At this moment, Mu Xing was about to take out the trash. As he threw the trash into the bin, Muli suddenly appeared beside him. The girl immediately jumped up excitedly. When they got home, their mother had already prepared lunch. And Muli was finally going home. Sitting in the car, Muli couldn't help but recall how his mother was murdered in his past life. He swore that in this life, he would protect his mother and sister. He wanted them to live a happy life. Yufeng said he would do everything he could to help him search. Muli was just asking casually. It didn't matter if there wasn't any. What Muli didn't know was that his tall and strong, manly image had already captivated this cute yoga girl. The Yu family would fully support him. Muli happened to need herbs over 100 years old, so he took the opportunity to bring it up. Originally, the Yu family had them, but they were given to the old master. Not only that, Muli also said that the old man's cultivation had improved. After speaking, he turned to leave. Yufeng immediately promised that if he ever needed help. Suddenly, he exclaimed, "Grandpa has woken up." The old man coughed lightly twice, and finally opened his eyes. He said he had never felt so refreshed before, and even found that his long-standing ailments were cured. Muli struck the old man's chest with a palm in midair. Then he and the old man performed some fancy moves in the air. Finally, he kicked the old man's arm. The old man fell back onto the bed again. Yu Xiaotong immediately stepped forward to check on the old man, to gently lift the old man up. When Yu Laowa woke up, he was very upset. He lunged at Muli again. Muli lifted his leg and kicked him. This time, Yu Laowa probably wouldn't get up for a while. Yu Feng really couldn't understand Muli's words. He even wondered if Muli had a grudge against their Yu family. Muli couldn't be bothered to explain. He simply said it was the simplest and most effective method. Then he manipulated his spiritual energy. He asked Muli how to treat the old man. Muli smiled and said it was just a minor injury. Yu Xiaotong finally breathed a sigh of relief. Muli then said that all it takes is a good beating. The father and daughter were immediately stunned and speechless. Stuck to the wall. With one blow, he lost consciousness. Yu Feng was taken aback. You have to know that his second brother is the strongest person besides the old man. Yu Feng hurriedly cupped his hands and bowed. Poor energy flow. Just as Muli finished speaking, Yu Lao struck Muli with a palm. Who gave you permission to touch the old master? Mu Li casually waved his hand, and Yu Lao was sent flying. However, Mu Li directly placed a palm on old master Yu's chest, and quickly drew a conclusion. The old master has hidden injuries in his meridians. They are blocked, which leads to. Mu Li had already walked in at this moment, but it drew mockery from Yu Lao towards Yu Feng. Can you take responsibility if something goes wrong? Facing his second brother's questioning, Yu Feng had no reply. However, the man sitting next to him mocked him mercilessly. This man was Yu Xiaotong's second uncle, Yu Er. Yu Xiaotong ignored him. She immediately told her father that she had brought a skilled expert. Maybe I can save Grandpa, and called out, Grandpa. Old Master Yu, who could lie in bed, had long fallen into a coma. His father, Yu Feng, had already learned about the matter of the potion, but he did not blame his daughter. Yu Xiaotong could only say, I'm sorry, with deep self-reproach. We just returned to the Yu family home. Both of the elder Yu's attending physicians said there was probably no hope. Yu Xiaotong rushed into the house. While Yu Xiaoxiong was too ashamed to go in, Yu Xiaotong pushed the door open. He could only awkwardly say they'd talk once they got in the car. As soon as they got in the car, Yu Xiaotong asked about the echo meter. Yu Xiaotong awkwardly touched her face. I grit my teeth and recounted my previous experiences. My brother was so angry he almost rear-ended someone. Was it a deliberate trap? The two just left the station. A man in a car across the street greeted Yu Xiaotong. This man is Yu Xiaotong's brother, Yu Xiaotong. When he asked about the guy Yu Xiaotong was with, pay attention, this is the legendary ultimate move of tolerance, commonly known as facing the wall. I didn't expect the esteemed Wu Ji Xianzuan to be defenseless against this bizarre technique. He actually agreed to help Yu Xiaotong save his grandfather. But look at Mu Li's awkward expression. Then she clung to Mu Li's leg, crying and begging him to compensate for the potion. In order to completely rely on Mu Li, he had no choice but to use the 100% winning formula his brother taught him. Watch me unleash the ultimate move of tolerance. Wu Hong, being tactful, handed the potion to Mu Li. But when Mu Li handed it to Yu Xiaotong, this girl fumbled and missed it. With a crash, the potion shattered on the ground, and her face turned pale. He never imagined that this young man would be so powerful. He thought he was Huang Fu Yun, about to break through to the 5th rank. Mu Li had no idea what he was talking about. Little Gada casually asked about Yu Xiaotong's injuries. Yu Xiaotong ran over and said he's fine. With one punch, he struck Wu Hong's chest. The immense force sent Wu Hong flying through the entire train. All the windows shattered instantly. A terrifying aura filled the train. Wu Hong, lying at the back of the train, coughed up blood. A few little thugs had already surrounded Mu Li. Suddenly, a few bangs were heard. The thugs were beaten and scattered. Seeing this, Wu Hong viciously lunged at Mu Li. Mu Li assumed a punching stance. Wu Hong searched her and found an echo elixir. Legend has it that this elixir can bring the dead back to life, and Yu Xiaotong was going to take it back for his grandfather. At this moment, Mu Li slowly walked towards Wu Hong. Yu Xiaotong hurriedly urged him to leave. Both hands formed a shield, but it was broken in less than a second. Wu Hong showed no mercy. A knee strike. The poor girl was sent flying right in front of Mu Li. You take the chance to escape. I don't want innocent people to die because of me. As soon as she finished speaking, Wu Hong, the little villain behind them, launched a shadow claw at them. Yu Xiaotong pushed Mu Li away. Gagaga felt ignored. He raised an iron rod and angrily struck down. However, it was all in vain, because Yu Xiaotong had already pulled Mu Li and rushed out first. While escaping, Yu Xiaotong said to Mu Li, I'll hold off Wu Hong. We meet again. Hand over the echo meter made by the master alchemist, and I'll spare your life. Yu Xiaotong woke up in shock. She hurriedly warned the handsome guy next to her to leave quickly. A few hours later, they had reached the final stop. Mu Li noticed that a blue-haired beauty had fallen asleep on his shoulder. Suddenly, a group of cocky little punks swaggered over. The vulgar Gagaga said to Yu Xiaotong. He remembered that before he left, the little witch specifically told him to come back early. Alright, help him find the hero who saved him last time. Mu Li suddenly felt a headache coming on. If he found out that the hero was actually me, who knows what kind of new drama would unfold. The next day, Mu Li took the train back home. Sitting on the train, Mu Li was playing with the black card in his hand. This black card ending in 888 was issued by the little witch. It has 50 million stored in it. Feng Xi fled in hatred towards the northwest. Soon, a post about Feng Xi's failed assassination appeared on the Era forum. At this moment, Jupiter sent him a message. Ask him when he will come home. Tell him that Mom misses him. Mu Li smiled and said, You want to kill me? You're not qualified yet. Feng Xi took the opportunity to flee upward. Mu Li casually waved a dagger, slicing through the air as it shot towards Feng Xi. One strike to the head. Without saying a word, Muli lifted him up. Just then, a dagger slid out from the wind's embroidery. He grabbed the dagger and lunged at Muli. However, it was easily pinched by Muli's 2 fingers, completely leaving Wind Sting dumbfounded. In an instant, Wind Sting was filled with the urge to retreat. Muli looked at him with interest, saying, "Your technique for concealing your aura is quite good. Do you want to learn? First, pull me up. This water is too cold." It turns out this guy held onto a stone and held his breath at the bottom of the lake for 30 minutes. But just as he popped his head out of the water, he saw Muli lying on a tree by the shore. It seemed she had been waiting for him for a long time. Muli flipped over and fell onto the water's surface. That just as he escaped, Muli was already hot on his heels. Feng Ci could only speed up and run wildly. As Muli chased him to the riverbank, the shadow of the Wind Sting has disappeared. Muli casually threw a punch and sent him flying. The ambush failed. Feng Ci dared not fight again. He threw a smoke bomb towards Muli and fled, but he didn't expect. When the little witch looked up, Muli had already approached from behind him. With one punch, he blocked Feng Ci's sneak attack. To his surprise, Feng Ci's target turned out to be Muli. Feng Ci swung his knife and executed the cold light strike. The little witch immediately became interested. Muli told her that the little white rabbit was in the flower bed outside. The little witch dashed over and crouched down in the flower bed, searching for the little white rabbit. Just when Muli, who was observing in secret, thought Feng Ci wouldn't take the bait, a rustling sound came from the tree in the courtyard. For the next 4 hours, Muli stayed by his side, but Feng Ci never made a move. He must be wary of Muli being nearby, so Muli lied, claiming to have seen a little white rabbit outside. Then he put the protective jade bracelet on the little witch. He urged him not to be reckless, because this would protect him. Perhaps it was due to Muli's sudden tenderness. The little witch blushed and agreed for once. Actually, the person who saved him is right in front of him. But Muli didn't say it out loud. Instead, he pulled him back into the house. Because he already felt a murderous aura approaching. He was certain that Feng Ci was nearby. The little witch waved in front of him. "What are you looking at? Would you like to go out and play with me?" It turns out he went out to find Romeo, who saved him last time. At this moment, he couldn't suppress his admiration and worship for that person. The little witch's princess temper flared up again. Muli quickly comforted the young lady. Suddenly, a sound came from nearby. Muli glanced in the direction of the sound. It's guessed that the Wind Sting is here. Muli's phone received a message. He opened it and saw all kinds of betting information. The most striking one was Su Wen's 20 million. Muli smiled, feeling satisfied. Seeing Muli ignoring her, it just happened to be the capital for Muli's betting. This quickly caused a stir. It's ironic that they invested 10 million themselves. Su Wen, on the other hand, invested 20 million in Muli. At this time, the little witch was making a fuss to go out and play. The keyboard warriors below still have no faith in this task taker, Wuji. However, Muli directly posted, ignoring the mockery, and set up a bet to buy his victory for Wuji. One bet loses 10 times, going crazy over one bet. The Sun family sent 10 million. He came to this internet cafe again. He logged on to the Opportunity Exchange website. Sure enough, the post was mocking someone who had already returned to the country. The next target is Su Jiechi. Otherwise, he would not show mercy. Sun Qingren repeatedly said he wouldn't dare. After the Sun family left, Muli calculated the time. It was almost time for the sarcastic action. Only then did Su Wen lightly cough twice. He said the Sun father and son were looking for Muli. In the living room, Sun's father and son respectfully bowed to Muli and apologized. They also compensated him 10 million. Muli warned Sun Qingren not to go near his sister in the future. The little witch was stunned. She didn't expect this wooden blockhead to give in. The little witch loosened her grip. Muli smiled and said, "Can you get off me now?" The little witch immediately sat obediently to the side. "You untrustworthy scoundrel. What happened to your promise to protect me?" Su Wen was about to scold his daughter for her unreasonable behavior, but Muli said she was sorry. He promised to protect him next time, but the little witch suddenly grabbed the bedsheet tightly. What exactly does he want to say to Muli? The dignified supreme immortal is actually being pinned down by a mortal. The little demon girl has her hands around his neck. She questions him sharply. It seems that this time the clues have been lost again. At this moment, the little witch also woke up. She called Muli over. Muli sat down beside her. He just asked if she was feeling better. In her daze, the little witch felt how warm this person's embrace was. She really liked this feeling. Soon, the little witch was sent back to the Su family. Su Wen told Muli that all the attackers had poisoned themselves. This guy actually threw the little witch down. As Muli jumped, he swiftly eliminated Xiao Gaga. Then he flew towards the little witch. In the end, he securely caught the little witch, hovering above the sea, but even caught a few bullets. Then the guy dragged the unconscious little witch out. He quickly went to the edge of the cliff by the roadside to threaten Muley. "Get any closer, and I'll throw her into the sea to feed the fish." Muley just said, "You dare." Then, with one hand, she slams the car to the ground. The two people in the front seats die instantly. The guy in the back seat came out with a gun. He started wildly shooting at Muley. Muley not only dodged every shot, about to lash out at the little witch. A flash of purple narrowly misses the car. The punk suddenly stops in his tracks. Just as he's wondering what that was, Muley is already standing not far in front of the car. He directly dodged one of his attacks. With one palm, he slammed him into the ground. This time, the scarred man should be as good as dead. Meanwhile, the little witch has already been pinned down in a car, not knowing where she was being taken. A little punk can't hold back, and threw a pill into his mouth. He was seen with his muscles bulging all over. Veins were popping out. His momentum was rising steadily. The scarred man, now stronger, started bragging to Muley. Mori kicked Scar Red away. But Scar Red wasn't dead yet. Only then did Beishishin realize that the young man before him was so powerful. Scar Red stood up. He only asked for a minute. Soon, the two exchanged over 100 blows. Scarred Red suddenly drew a dagger from behind his back, quickly pierced Beishishin's left shoulder. At the critical moment, at the same time, Muley approached the two of them. Beishishin quickly stopped Muley from advancing, believing that he would only bring death upon himself. Muley couldn't be bothered. Two underlings were carrying Su Jiechi towards the front, to report to the scar-faced man about the failure to capture Li Yao. At that moment, Beishishin appeared behind the scar-faced man. This scar-faced man was none other than the Hall Master of Hehuan sect, Scarred Red. Suddenly, the jade pendant that Muley gave her emitted a golden light. Then, she was enveloped by a mysterious power. The person preparing to ambush him saw that the situation was not good, and immediately withdrew. Outside the hotel, suddenly, all the lights in the venue went out. The little witch's screams for help followed. Muley and Li Yao exchanged a few words. They had just left not long ago. A shadow suddenly appeared behind Li Yao. She looked just like a fairy version of Yasnai. Even Rao's Muley was amazed. Truly a goddess. Of course, this couple is definitely going to dance together. The little witch was so angry that she cursed Muley, calling him a big pig's hoof. At the upcoming masquerade ball, Muley transformed. There's a sense of déjà vu from the old lady. As soon as Su Jai, dressed as a rabbit, poked her head out, Muley recognized her. Next was Li Yao's transformation. Muley smiles and says it has nothing to do with money. He just wants him to wear it close to him. This scene happens to be seen by Su Jiechi. He looks displeased, because this guy actually took their family's bath girl. He handed over the prepared birthday gift. When Li Yao opened it, he found a jade pendant emitting a gentle green light. He knows it must be worth a lot. He immediately prepares to return it to Muley. The muscular man wanted nothing more than to go out and teach him a lesson right away. The old man, however, scoffed and said, "What are you getting worked up about with a doomed person?" The muscular man immediately reacted. After all, they had always believed that Muley was no match for Feng Xiai. At that moment, Muley walked up to Li Yao. The old man waved to stop the muscular man, and reminded Muley that Huanzong was powerful. They could secretly protect the Su family and the Li family. Muley only said 2 words, "That's fine." Then he ignored them. After that greeting was done, they left this message. Muley turned and walked away. Seeing Muley's arrogant demeanor, the muscular man was increasingly displeased with him. Muley got straight to the point. He asked them what they really wanted to say. It turned out they had learned that Huanzong had recently set his sights on Su Wan and Li Yu. They also heard that Muley was responsible for protecting Su Jiechi, so they wanted to greet him. "I've brought Mr. Wuji here." This white-haired elder was called by Shishan, the leader of the 2nd Division of the Longshan Martial Alliance branch. A burly man beside him looked at Muley with disdain. Moreover, this old man has a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. To handle all matters related to Huaxia martial artists. And this time, the reason they approached Muley is related to the group of men in black who attacked Su Jiechi earlier. As they walked into the house, the old man said to the man sitting on the sofa, "Patriarch Bai." It turned out that someone from the Martial Alliance wanted to see him. Soon, Muley was taken by the old man to meet the people from the Martial Alliance. Along the way, the old man told Muley that the Martial Alliance is an organization of martial artists in Huaxia. It is commissioned by the country's top leaders. A group of women was already enchanted by Muley. With a loud bang, they rushed towards Muley. The little witch angrily shouted that Muley was a nuisance. At this moment, Muley was completely surrounded by Wade. The shout of an old man with a white beard caught his attention. Sun Dafu then realized that Su Jiechi was Su Shi's daughter. He immediately knelt before Muli and spoke kindly. Muli coldly looked at him and said, "Don't touch me. Stay away from me." Su Jiechi had just praised Muli. Li Hong stopped him from saying more. He looked up and saw Su Wen. He was startled. Su Wen asked him to consider his face. "Let this matter end here." Su Wen strides over with 2 bodyguards. Su Wen doesn't even acknowledge the host. He respectfully asked Muli what had happened. Before Muli could answer, Sun Dafu, who had just woken up, shouted that he would make Muli squat for 10 or 8 years. The little witch is watching beside them, extremely excited. At this moment, Li Hong walks over, to persuade Muli to leave quickly. After all, even he can't afford to provoke Sun Dafu. Just then. Just because I'm silent doesn't mean I'm easy to bully. It doesn't mean you can act recklessly. Sun Qingren, still clueless, continued to spout insults. Muli swiftly pinned the heads of 2 worthless goons. Let the 2 have an intense intimate encounter. That old man's son also wanted to teach him a lesson. Old Sun still tried to use his status to threaten Muli at this moment. Muli casually slapped him across the face. Old Sun was knocked out on the spot. Pointing at the group of losers, Muli coldly said, "Remember this." As Muli leaped out, countless clones appeared. Almost all of the security guards were instantly defeated. In just a moment, only the Sun family father and son and Li Hong were still standing. The little witch shouted, "Muli," from behind. A group of mortals dares to defy the might of a heavenly sovereign. As dozens of guards approach Muli, a powerful aura radiates from him. They were forced to keep their distance. Sun Qingren and the others finally realized that Muli was actually a dancer. Muli stands before the 2 women, exuding a powerful aura. In front of me, who dares to touch him? This man is the heavenly sovereign who could challenge the late emperor. Today, she wants to see who dares to kick her out. Suddenly, Muli's hand rested on her shoulder. "Stay behind me." The little witch blushed instantly. She felt a small thrill of being protected. Even Sun Dafu has made a tough statement. He wants to drive this witch away. Su Jiechi's little face darkened. She didn't expect this old fox wouldn't recognize her. But the name of the little witch Su Jia is not just for show. At a glance, it's the little witch from the Su family again. Sun Qingren was immediately scared stiff. Now there are 2 beauties backing her up. It's simply envy-inducing for others. And Li Yao's father, Li Hong, surprisingly doesn't recognize this young lady from the Su family. At this moment, Su Jiechi's calm voice sounded. "It's just a few 100,000. Is it necessary to shout so loudly? The Sun family has never seen the world like this." Pointing at Muli, she told him to quickly apologize to young Master Sun. Sun Dafu even threatened to sue Muli if she didn't kneel and apologize. Muli smiled slightly, "If I don't cause a scene." Sun Qingren regained his confidence. He continued to falsely accuse Muli of stealing his watch, still acting so arrogant. After speaking, he waved his hand, and threw him to the ground. Sun Dafu, seeing this, shouted angrily, "Who are you? How dare you hit my son?" Li Hong immediately helped Sun Qingren up. He gets caught in the act. However, he calmly claims it was found in Muli's pocket. This almost makes Muli laugh. "Your acting is so clumsy. Was I the fool back then, or are you the fools?" He has no name but shows no respect. He stubbornly clings to Muli. Suddenly, Sun Qingren quietly approaches Muli from behind. In fact, Muli has already noticed him from the corner of his eye. Just as Sun Qingren is about to secretly drop a Rolex into Muli's pocket, Muli grinned and said, "All men, huh? Why do you always like to play dirty?" Wu Ming kept spewing malicious slander. At that moment, Li Yao squeezed through, and stood in front of Muli to defend him. So, they were playing such a low-level trick. Su Jiechi's attention was also drawn over. Wu Ming continued to exaggerate, distorting the truth. Soon, Muli and the others were surrounded by the crowd, and gave Muli a sly smile. Suddenly, he grabbed Muli's arm and shouted, "Why did you steal my stuff?" Then he fell to the ground, acting in sync with Wu Ming. They accused Muli of not only stealing, but also hitting people. Muli gave a faint smile. Of course, Muli knew something was up. But why care about someone as insignificant as Hui Hui? "Why are you looking for me?" Wu Ming remained silent. Sun Qingren walked up from behind. Seizing the opportunity, he decided to ask for a favor. Xiao Mang just wanted to humiliate Muli in public. A cruel, mischievous smile flashed in Wu Ming's eyes. It was almost like a perfect coincidence. Soon, Wu Ming beckoned Muli over. Chairman Sun Dafu was shaking hands with Li Hong and greeting him. His son, Sun Qingren, was raising a glass of red wine to toast Li Yao. Suddenly, he noticed that Muli, who had embarrassed him last time at Jingyang Lane, was also here. Just then, a nameless person walked over, wanting to get close to him. Sun Qingren smirked slightly. The buzzing flies here are really annoying. Let's go outside for a walk. Although Wu Ming was displeased, but what he was upset about was why someone like Mu Li, a loser, had a stunning beauty by his side. At this moment, the father and son from Sun's real estate also entered the venue. This person used to bully Mu Li a lot in their previous life. Mu Li will never forget those humiliating days. Wu Ming still belittles and looks down on Mu Li just like in their past life. Su Jieqi couldn't bear to listen anymore. She coldly said to Mu Li. Hearing this startled Li Yao. But Mu Li had a headache. At that moment, a mocking voice rang out. The young man speaking was Wu Ming. He smiled and introduced himself. Hello, my name is Li Yao, a classmate of Mu Li. Hello, my name is Su Jieqi, Mu Li's master, a dignified immortal lord secretly following a mortal. Who could possibly notice? Li Yao greeted Mu Li as soon as he saw him. The middle-aged man next to him was Li Yao's father, Li Hong. But he didn't expect Mu Li to bring along a beautiful young girl. The little witch's mood instantly improved. It turned out Mu Li wanted Miss Su to be his date, to attend the birthday party of his crush. However, Su Jieqi's condition was that Mu Li couldn't follow her after that. Mu Li readily agreed. As soon as he heard help, Su Jieqi opened the door a crack again. He originally intended to continue a standoff with Mu Li, but upon hearing Mu Li say that if he helped him this time, he would agree to one condition. He looked displeased and asked what he wanted. Mu Li smiled and asked him if he was still angry. Already annoyed, he slammed the door again. Mu Li knocked again, saying he needed his help. It was obviously Mu Li who reported him. After returning to the Su family, Su Jieqi had been sulking, until Mu Li knocked on the door several times. Su Jieqi finally opened the door. He was forced to stop by the traffic police, because they received a report that someone was driving this car without a license. When he was asked to get out of the car by the traffic police, he saw Mu Li on the other side greeting him friendly. Even though she didn't have a driver's license, she wasn't worried at all. Instead, she felt a sense of freedom, and was overjoyed. But just as she started driving, after some flirtatious small talk, Li Yao mentioned that his birthday was in a few days. He wanted to invite Mu Li to his birthday party. The goddess invited Mu Li, so of course, he couldn't refuse. At this moment, Su Jieqi had already secretly driven off. Mu Li responded with a smile as well. This goddess had even helped him when he was in trouble in his previous life. Li Yao noticed Su Jieqi, who had been secretly watching them from behind. He thought she was Mu Li's girlfriend. Su Jieqi angrily returned to the restroom. This little witch is a bit too young. Just then, a familiar face approached. It was Li Yao, the gentle goddess he had a crush on in high school. Li Yao greeted him with a smile. Startled, he quickly scrambled back through the window. That moment was just too embarrassing. He opened the bathroom door. Peeking out, he found Mu Li already standing at the doorway, playing hide and seek with the esteemed senior. One of his red high heels fell off. It was Mu Li who had just called out to him, and caught his high heel. He was curious when Mu Li had gotten there, but Mu Li said, "You flashed." She obviously couldn't go in. As soon as Su Jieqi entered the restroom, he climbed out through the window. While he smugly climbed down the air conditioner unit, someone called out to him from below. In a panic, he lost his footing. Su Jieqi was annoyed by the tag-along behind him. How could he enjoy himself freely like this? Suddenly, he ran to the entrance of the women's restroom. He teasingly asked Mu Li if she wanted to follow him in, although Mu Li knew he was up to something. Then, angrily, he went downstairs to prepare to leave. He didn't care about his father's objections. Mu Li noticed he hadn't put on the jade bracelet. He had no choice but to accompany him out. Mu Li followed this young lady all the way to the mall, and deliver the rest to his mother and sister. The next morning, Su Jieqi looked at the protective bracelet that Mu Li gave him last night again and again. He thought it was too ugly. He simply threw it on the table. It's meant to be a one-time item. The jade pendant the assistant brought over is the genuine one. It can block 5 times. Mu Li handed the finished protective jade to Su Wen, told him to keep one for himself. The jade pendant fell back into Mu Li's hand, unharmed. However, it soon turned into fragments. Just when old Lin thought it could only be used once, Mu Li told them, "This is just for demonstration." He took a jade pendant and went to the living room. Then Su Wen brought over a gun. He then threw the jade pendant into the air. He fired a shot. The bullet was instantly deflected. Mu Li handed over the protective bracelet he made. He asked her to carry it with her. Upon hearing, "carry with her," the girl clearly misunderstood Mu Li's intention. However, Mu Li couldn't care less about what she thought. It turns out Mu Li was making a protective charm. After finishing one, he knocked on Su Jieqi's door. Su Jieqi opened the door. She looked impatient. He asked Su Wen to help him find a few bathrooms. Soon, the female assistant brought over a box of jade bracelets. Mu Li took the box. He was very satisfied, but as for the purpose, he didn't tell them for now. Old Lin seemed to have heard of this organization before, but he couldn't recall at the moment. It seems that others have their eyes on Su Jiechi now. Now, they can only be cautious. Mu Li's mind stirred. After returning to the Su family, Mu Li recounted his previous experiences. Du Wen asked if they were from the Shashaman. Mu Li noticed that they all had a leaf-shaped symbol on their arms. However, it seemed that Shashaman wouldn't use such lowly tactics. After saying that, he bit down on a pill. Then, he gloriously met his end. Mu Li didn't expect that Xiao Gaga would be so ruthless to him. He actually committed suicide by poison. That was truly careless. Which group are you from? Xiao Gaga removed his mask, and smiled slyly. Trying to get information out of me? I'm afraid I will disappoint you. How could there be such a master in Longshan City? Mu Li said calmly with a leaf between his lips. You still haven't answered my question, so you're not qualified to ask one. I'll ask again. Mu Li simply plucked a green leaf. With a flicker, he instantly took out everyone. The leading little guy let out a startled cry. Leaf plucking kills. The ambushers, the little gang, finally came out, and Mu Li suddenly appeared behind them. Who are you people? What he can respond with is to take him down. The little guy rushed up, squawking loudly. Su Jiechi was wondering why there was a strange smell. Then she and Quan Shuqi fainted on the ground. Mu Li didn't expect they'd use sleep-inducing smoke to deal with them. As the smoke dissipated, 2 bullets shot towards the ambush spot at high speed. 2 small gag gas were instantly shot in the head. Su Jiechi had just gotten out of the car. Uncle Quan told him to go back quickly, but a sudden cloud of black smoke floated in. Having just escaped death, Quan Shu was instantly terrified and collapsed to the ground. The bullet that was aimed at him still hovered above his head. Another bullet aimed at Mu Li was controlled and stopped in front of him. Mu Li closed his eyes. He waved his hand casually. It stopped his path. Suddenly, 2 loud bangs echoed. It turned out a bullet was shot at the driver, Quan Shu. However, it stopped just 1 centimeter away from his head. It miraculously halted in midair. She even hummed Devil from Heaven by GM. But the mighty magician Zun has been reduced to a tool. However, on the way back, they were already being watched. On the way, he was suddenly blocked by a big tree. However, considering that Su Jiechi had helped him a lot today, next, she can go wherever she wants. They say shopping is a woman's nature. Su Jiechi is certainly no exception. Thus, Su Jiechi kept shopping until the sun set. Suddenly, Mu Xian burst into laughter. He had already believed that this brother had turned into a virtuous person. After bidding farewell to his sister, Miss Su teased Mu Li, could it be that you're a sister Khan? Mu Li actually blushed and didn't know how to respond. This man originally wanted to become the supreme being of the infinite universe. Yet he gambled his entire life's cultivation to reverse his fate and be reborn. All to return to the past and atone for his sins. Just now, the dignified immortal lord fell silent in front of his sister. He made up an excuse. He said he met a master in the film industry who gave him 5 paths. So he has already turned over a new leaf. Jupiter is watching him closely. Do you think I would believe such words? Mu Li is now his bodyguard. The salary is exceptionally high. After buying the clothes, Mu Xian wanted to hear this guy's explanation. Mu Li felt guilty. Su Jiechi smiled and told him that Mu Li could now buy the whole store, not to mention a few pieces of clothing. Seeing Mu Xian's surprised expression, Su Jiechi explained. Su Jiechi proudly said that what he picked is definitely the best. Even Mu Li, a big guy, expressed that it's quite nice. But when Mu Xian looked at the price tag, he said it's too expensive. He still decided not to buy it. Su Jiechi proudly said, he definitely asked the right person. Before long, they arrived at a high-end fashion boutique. Mu Xian was wearing a blue dress, shyly asking if it looks good. Only then did Mu Xian realize she was still wearing women's clothing. He was about to go back to change clothes. Mu Li stopped him, then turned to ask Su Jiechi if she had any recommended clothing stores. I escape in utter disgrace. When Mu Li asked why his sister was working part-time here, Mu Xian said it was because the pay was good. Mu Li felt another wave of guilt. It was all because of his sister that she had to endure such humiliation. With a look of disdain, she said, is Sun Real Estate really that impressive? Who cares about those who touch my heart? Sun Qingren was so angry he gritted his teeth. Yet I dare not express my anger. I can only leave behind a harsh remark. Su Jiechi never expected this guy to be so skilled. Sun Qingren, oblivious to his situation, pointed at Mu Li and shouted. Mu Li struck down with a palm to his chest. Sun Qingren, who had fallen to the ground, continued to rant. At that moment, Su Jiaqin walked over and leaned on Mu Li's shoulder. Then he was easily thrown backward. The store manager was flung far away, crashing into a table. Everyone present was shocked. Even Jupiter covered his mouth in disbelief. He made the boss call him over to clean it up. The boss turned to look at Jupiter. Without even asking, he swung a slap at him. Suddenly, his hand was tightly grabbed by Jupiter. He shouted for the boss to come out. The boss saw it was young Master Sun. He quickly ran over, flustered. Sun Qingren deliberately slandered Jupiter. He splashed water on him. Faced with Sun Qingren's sweet talk and promises, Mu Xing directly ignored Dandan, and simply said she was leaving. Then she turned and walked away. Sun Qingren, embarrassed, splashed the lemonade from the table onto his own lower body. Envious gazes immediately turned their way. Su Jiaqi told Mu Li at that moment that the man's name is Sun Qingren. He is the only son of the Sun Group's real estate company, and is also a typical playboy. But Jupiter had work to do. She politely declined. Unexpectedly, the guy took out a large diamond ring. In front of everyone, he confessed to Jupiter, "Be my girlfriend." Mu Li was about to call him. Suddenly, someone slapped Mu Xian on the butt. He almost stumbled and lost his balance. The person taking the photo was a man with a lecherous look behind him. This man asked Jupiter to come over and chat with him. Mu Li ordered 2 glasses of juice. Casually asked if they had someone named Mu Xian. The girl smiled and said he was picking up food in the kitchen. Soon, Mu Xian came out with desserts and juice. As he walked past Mu Li also looked confused. Just now, my sister only mentioned the address. She didn't tell him it was this kind of place. As soon as Mu Li and Su Jiaqi were seated, a maid came over to serve them enthusiastically. An angry Su Jiaqi pounded his chest with her little fists. Then Mu Li called his sister Mu Xing. I arrived at the address where he works part-time. I came to this maid cafe. Su Jiaqi covered her mouth and laughed. It turns out you like this kind of vibe. Su Jiaqi asked Mu Li to explain what kind of dark magic he just used. Mu Li suddenly leaned in with a sinister expression. Do you understand my power now? If you dare disobey me again. Su Jiaqi screamed in fright. Mu Li quickly sat back, saying it was just a joke. It condensed into countless terrifying ghostly shadows. The 3 little brats were so frightened they knelt and begged for mercy. Su Jiaqi curiously asked what was wrong with them. Mu Li calmly packed his things and said, just an illusion. Back in the car, his group of trashy roommates were sitting around playing games, shirtless. The few men immediately showed a perverted expression. Su Jiaqi was so scared she hid behind Mu Li. Mu Li smiled slightly, you brought this upon yourselves. Suddenly, a strong killing intent erupted from him. Su Jiaqi bit her lip slightly. She, the proud daughter of Su Shi. How could she possibly enter a place like this? Mu Li threatened her, saying if she didn't follow him inside, he wouldn't take her shopping later. As soon as they walked into Mu Li's dorm, Su Jiaqi didn't expect Mu Li's school to be so run down. Mu Li paid no attention to the young lady's dissatisfaction. He headed straight for the boys' dormitory building. The guys upstairs howled like wolves at the sight of a beauty, but Mu Li told Su Jiaqi to follow him upstairs. No running around. But Su Jiaqi just smiled. She pretended to comply. Once outside, did she really have to listen to a bodyguard? The next day, Mu Li directly brought Su Jiaqi to his university. Mu Li didn't respond. Instead, he looked at Su Wen. Su Wen could only helplessly agree. Su Jiaqi almost jumped up in excitement. Although Su Wen repeatedly warned her to stay close to Mu Li, calmly saying, Miss Su, for the next month, please follow my arrangements. Of course, I won't restrict your freedom. Su Jiaqi took the opportunity to ask to go out. Su Wen scolded him for being rude. He said this person was an honored guest who came to protect him. Su Jiaqi glanced at Mu Li with disdain, clearly doubting his abilities. Mu Li stood up and walked over to him. Su Wen couldn't help but feel worried. Mu Li directly suggested that his daughter go with him. Just as Su Wen was hesitating, Su Jiaqi, dressed in bunny pajamas, came downstairs. As soon as he came downstairs, he pointed at Mu Li and asked Su Wen, who is this? The first was a deposit of 2 million. Second, he has the final say on all protection matters. And the deposit must be received as soon as possible, because he's going out of town tomorrow. Hearing this, Lin Yu immediately clasped his hands and apologized to Mu Li, because he concluded that Mu Li was a martial master with profound skills. The noise outside also woke up Su Jiaqi, the eldest daughter of the Su family, who was wearing rabbit pajamas. At this moment, Su Wen and the others were discussing the next steps with Mu Li in the living room. Mu Li made 2 demands. Su Wen and the others were left dumbfounded. Mu Li beckoned to Zhao Chuan with a finger, and Zhao Chuan responded with a flying kick. Mu Li waved his hand casually. Zhao Chuan was sent flying away. This man is the supreme celestial lord with 5,000 years of cultivation. Just now, all the Su family's bodyguards challenged him, but Mu Li released just a trace of pressure. And all the bodyguards were blown away. Zhao Chuan had never seen such an arrogant boy. Difficult Mu Li, universe shocks the dead, don't even think about trying. I'll call everyone who can fight to come at you together. Zhao Chuan lost his temper on the spot. Do you think you are a martial arts master? Do you dare to fight me? Mu Li sneered with disdain. You're not worthy. I meant they are too weak. They are just a hindrance. Ignoring the shock of the three, Mu Li stated that this master and apprentice could barely stay. Being underestimated, Mu Li directly said to dismantle the surrounding bodyguards and surveillance. Lin Yu shook her head, indicating that his method would never entice Feng Ci to willingly offer himself. Mu Li rubbed his forehead. You misunderstood. Lin Yu scolded him. Although Su Wen also came out to mediate, he believed in his heart that Mu Li wasn't that impressive. To ease the tension, he asked Mu Li how he would protect his daughter. The old man and the young one were instantly dumbfounded. Su Wen also thought he was too young. Zhao Chuan intentionally teased Mu Li's little brother. This bounty is 20 million. Can you handle it? Lin Yu was a close friend of Su Wen's father in the past. This time, Su Wen had invited him over as well. When Lin Yu looked at Mu Li with curiosity, Su Wen quickly introduced him as the dancer who took on the bounty. His name is Wu Ji, but Mu Li told him, these bodyguards are useless against top assassins. At this moment, the female assistant walked over and told Su Wen that Master Lin had returned. The elderly man in front of them is Master Lin, Lin Yu. The young man behind him is his apprentice, Zhao Chuan. There sure are a lot of people here. The villa was full of hidden bodyguards and snipers. Along with a tight security system, Su Wen was quite surprised. It seemed the young man before him was not simple, but unexpectedly, he retaliated in this way. Mu Li was clearly not interested in their feud. After hearing his story, Mu Li said, though this villa is quiet. Along the way, Su Wen talked about the cause of the issue. It turns out he has a sworn enemy in business. They've been fighting for years. Not long ago, he provided the police with evidence of his enemy's dirty dealings. That person eventually fled in fear of being caught. As Mu Li stepped out of the car, she marveled at how big the house was. When Su Wen saw Mu Li, he was genuinely taken aback. He hadn't expected Wu Ji to be so young. After a brief self-introduction, Mu Li asked him to check out the situation in the villa's fabric room. But Su Wen has no other choice now. It's already a blessing that someone is willing to take on the task. I can only bring the person over first. Half an hour later, a Rolls-Royce picked Mu Li up and took her to the Su family's luxurious villa. When a call came in, it was from the Su family. Mu Li told them to come pick him up at the internet cafe and hung up. The call to Mu Li was from the chairman of Su Group. Su Wen's female assistant thinks this Wu Ji is not very reliable. He thought it was quite interesting. Then he typed his nickname, Wu Ji, on the keyboard. And the post showed that Wu Ji accepted the task. The comment section below has already heated up. Mu Li had just taken off his headphones. Because the comment section has already exploded. Obviously, this post was made by Su Wen. But no one dares to mock or challenge it. Unless they can get Master Animal. Mu Liqing smiled. He disdains killing a girl for a huge reward. He scrolls to the next post. The title boldly reads, Seeking an expert to protect my daughter. Monthly salary, 20 million. Yet no one dares to take this job. The Fengxi of the Shashaman accepted the task. The comments below all agreed that this poor girl was doomed. After all, the reputation of the Slaughter Gate is well known. Mu Li didn't expect anyone would take on this kind of mission. Anyway, as a dignified Wuji Tianzuan, Mu Li wasn't very interested, and immediately clicked on the second pinned post. This post was a bounty request, offering 10 million to avenge Su Jieqi, the daughter of Su Wen, a wealthy man from Zolongshan. Revenge, 10 million. As well as post or accept missions. Mu Li clicked on the pinned post about breaking through the 5th rank. He looked at the introduction to the 5th rank. It's essentially a realm of the 5 entities. Still just an ordinary person. Before long, he arrived at an internet cafe and booked a private room. Type Epic Trading Network in the web browser. It's a trading forum site, commonly known as the world's black market. Here, you can trade various information and items. And next, he needs to make money as fast as possible. Mu Li pondered. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration, thought of a way to make money. When he opened his eyes, he had already reached the early stage of chi refining. He threw a punch. The thick tree trunk was blasted through. Now his strength is enough to handle ordinary warriors of China. The cultivation technique he practiced was extraordinary. It was a top-tier sword technique known for its speed, even reaching the chi refining stage. could grant power far beyond that of ordinary people. 1 hour later, he poured the spirit liquid into a bowl. Muli drank it in one gulp. Then he sat cross-legged, and began to cultivate. Cultivation is divided into 5 major realms: chi refining, core formation, spirit soul, transformation, and celestial being. To cultivate quickly, he must rely on the refined spiritual liquid. After hours of refining, a sudden golden light burst from the pot. All the herbs were refined into spirit liquid. Then bought a pot at the hardware store. Afterwards, he went to a mountain in the suburbs. Then started a fire, and began refining the herbs. After all, the earth's spiritual energy is thin. For a moment, Mu Xing didn't know what to say. He just felt that this guy seemed to have changed. After Mu Xing left, he went to a nearby herbal medicine shop. He bought a bunch of medicinal herbs. Mu Xian's face turned red. Ask him what he wants to do. Mu Li, feeling a sense of guilt, called out to his sister. I'm sorry. He promised that if given a few days' time, he would definitely make things better at home. Turns out the family is deep in debt. Creditors show up every day. His mom can't come up with that much money alone. He's planning to work to pay off the debt left by his worthless brother. Mu Li suddenly hugged Mu Xian from behind. Mu Li quickly said he didn't want it. Leave it for him to use for school. But Mu Xian said he wouldn't be going to school anymore. Mu Li looked puzzled, and asked him why he wasn't going anymore. He slammed the money bag hard against him, listing his misdeeds. Mu Xian became more and more agitated as he spoke. His voice was almost a roar. The hard-earned money of his sister felt like a 1,000-pound boulder in his hands. Then handed him a bulging envelope. This is the 5,000 yuan I earned over 2 semesters. Take it and don't ask mom for money. Mu Li was stunned. Mu Xian thought he was pretending to be dumb. Seeing Mu Li's pained expression, Mu Xian asked him what was wrong. Mu Li chuckled. He waved his hand and said, "It's nothing." Mu Xian rummaged through her backpack. Mu Li didn't know how to start. In her past life, his sister was implicated by him, and forced by Zhou Xiang to jump off a building to commit suicide, while he could only watch helplessly, unable to do anything. Suddenly, someone called out to me from behind. I turned around and saw a girl who was more familiar to me than anyone else. This girl was my sister, Mu Xin, a reunion of siblings 5,000 years later. But this notebook was something his mother had saved for months to buy. During college, not only did I pretend to be wealthy and hang out at nightclubs, but when I ran out of money, I forced my mom to give me some. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but shed tears in pain. He directly walked out of the dormitory. Right now, he just wanted to quickly get his power back. Before long, he arrived at the small shop that recycles computers. But the shop owner only offered 800 for the trade, claiming it was due to 3 years of use. It turned out these people had always known his background. By this time, his laptop had already finished formatting. Yet these so-called friends still wanted to use it to blackmail Muley into being their sucker. Muley put the notebook into his backpack. Then he carried the backpack, too lazy to even glance at this group of losers. His roommate came back. As soon as he saw Muley, he came over. He asked him what he was treating them to tonight. Muley stayed silent, because in his past life, he had seen their true faces during his hardship. Soon, he returned to the familiar dormitory. He glanced at the current time. He needed to earn money quickly to improve his family's situation. But right now, he urgently needed a little cash. Just as he opened his notebook to format it, Muley couldn't help but cry out of guilt. He kept murmuring about his mother and sister, because he can finally repay the sins of the past. And that wicked man, Zhou Xiang, who caused the Mu family to be shattered, is about to face his wrath. He succeeded. He finally returned to the year he was 20 years old. This is Longshan University of Technology, where he once studied. Everything before him felt so real. There was not a hint of virtuality. To atone for his sins, a purple beam of light pierced through the sky. Space-time began to distort, and all things in heaven and earth started to reverse. As a purple lightning bolt descended from the sky, it slowly landed on the ground in the tomb. He became the renowned Ziwixing Wujitianzan. However, just as he was about to ascend to immortality, he wagered 5,000 years of cultivation, and used the rebirth reversal technique, just to return to the past. His sister was forced to jump off a building in front of him. A series of tragedies plunged him into endless remorse. By a stroke of luck, he embarked on the path of cultivation. After crazily cultivating for 5,000 years, it turns out he was a complete scumbag in his previous life. Not only did he indulge in extravagance, but he also found various excuses to ask his family for money. After offending the well-connected aristocrat Zhou Xiang, his mother was harmed. This man was originally the supreme master of the void, who had for 5,000 years. He was only one step away from transcending to immortality, yet he unhesitatingly gave it up. He used his 5,000 years of cultivation to return to the past, all to atone for his sins.